I really do want to give gratitude to all our ancestors, past, present, and future, and also to the field of the ancestors, and also this field that we sometimes talk of, the grandmothers, the net of light, the crystalline mycelium grid of consciousness. And I also want to give gratitude to the energy of the serpents and the dragons. I'm here in Avalon, finishing off a chapter here. And it was really this multi-dimensional energy of the serpents that guided the creation of the system that we work with, that we're offering a 9-day mini version of very soon. So I really want to honor that energy. I feel it's a very big key in these times. And finally, I just really want to honor the rishis and the celestial bodies and the daykeepers of the Mayan lands and Jose Arguelles, because I am probably going to weave a few astrological codes this evening. Okay. So thank you all. I do hope as well we can create a bit of a group field. So I call upon our higher selves, monad selves, and avatar selves to be with us in the ever-present now, so that we can get the most out of this call. And I hope I can answer some questions for you to help you to make a better understanding of what's going on in these times and what's coming up in the next few years. Okay. So, yeah, welcome everybody. As I mentioned to some of you who came on early, I am feeling the power of these journeys already. So I'm a little bit monosyllabic, and in a way that gives a really good backdrop to this weaving that we're offering. We're offering two things back to back. One of them is a little mini journey that's linked to a system that we've been teaching for about 4 years, which really fuses a lot of things. We're going to talk about that first. But it's also tying into an ancestral course that's been bubbling in the background for many years. I have done quite a lot of ancestral work within my own healing journey, and also within work that I facilitated with plant medicines, with psychotherapies, with shamanic work for about at least 8 years in various capacities. And I also have done quite a lot of work with Sangoma, brothers and sisters from South Africa. So we've often, some of them have trained with me. I have co-created retreats with them, all sorts of things. And it really came out of meditation recently that it was time to run this course. And we instantly got the mirroring of lots of different codes that it was the time. And it came to the top of our queue. We had other things we were going to be running at this time of year, and it went right up the top of the queue, okay? And so this discussion is really about why the time is now. And it's funny because we do a lot aligned with astrology, and I work with 3 different astrological systems. And we haven't run our Serpents of Transformation chakra journey for about 1.5 years, which is the longest we've ever not done it. But then what we felt was that a lot of people who are already on the healing journey have these residues left to work with. And we felt that what often happens, we do this chakra journey, which involves pranayama, very deep chakra teaching. It's based on pranayamas, linking right through to Babaji, the avatar being. And we align it with numerology and astrology and all these other teachings. And it just creates like a vortex around that chakra, okay? And having run it up to minimum of 5 chakras every time, sometimes we've gone further up to even what we might call 12 chakras. I'll discuss that. If anybody asks, I'll explain some of this later. But basically, we really started to look at what our Dharma is and what we're here for. And we're primarily, quite a feminine group of people. We don't just work with women, but what we see a lot of in this day and age is a lot of people doing very cathartic things or doing things like ayahuasca ceremonies with 30 people. And I come from a background of serving plant medicines. And one of the reasons I took a step back was I started to see that people came for like a spectacle. They came for a moment, but how many of them were really stepping onto their full healing journey. And as a compassionate organization who want to work holding space for people, we really feel that we want to hold space for people to go through those deeper layers of work that astrologically are up to be cleared. So through this little discussion tonight, I can share a few timelines with you that verify this. And this was one of the reasons why we decided that rather than doing even 5 chakras, we're going to just work on the root chakra for 9 days, which is the normal length of time we work on the root chakra in our serpent's journey. And there are quite a few people on here who've done this, the full journey with us before, and there will be people who often can't even get past the root chakra because there's so much stuff can be there, or in the sacral chakra. And then a lot of feelings of failure and insecurities around self-esteem, feelings of shame kick in, and some people don't even finish. So we thought, well, let's look at that and let's actually really hold space for those 9 days and then say to people, okay, what has come up? And rather than going into the sacral chakra and getting distracted because you're on to the next thing, we're just going to sit on the root chakra and open that up into a journey of an exploration to many of the themes around the root chakra. So I would like to ask you all, does anybody know some of the symbolism or the deficiencies or the excesses or the energies that reside around the root chakra?
Scarcity, lack of safety, not feeling grounded, instability. You can have like lower back pain as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. And just to put this into context, the root chakra is seen often as connecting with also the archetype of the serpent, which we are running this journey on the first day of the serpent wave spell in the dream spell calendar. And in a lot of shamanic traditions, the root chakra and the serpent also represents our past. There's a saying that kind of comes through the moon eye keys, shedding our past the way a serpent like sheds its skin, like we shed our past. And I've just said it the wrong way around, but it's all about the past and its clutch on us, or the rootlessness we may feel because our ancestors maybe were persecuted. And the serpent as a metaphor is really connected in to the double helix structure, to this concept of our genetic history. And this is why often we have things like survival terror, not feeling safe in our body or safe in the world. And it's funny because I'm here, I move, I'm a nomad, but I crave stability these days. I just know it's not my time just yet. And my stuff's kind of up because I'm in packing mode again. But I'm really realizing that because we've got all these teachings coming, there are ancestors who fled for their lives. It's almost like a field of ancestors, just their pain is around me a lot right now. And so those insecurities that sit around the root chakra are very evident to me right now as I go back on the road. So it's validating to me that the time is now to do this work, because we have this collective amnesia around our roots. And so many people maybe have a little bit of birth certificates, or they've got some part of their family tree research. But if we look at the legacy of colonization, of slavery, of just displacement, we all have this yearning and this feeling of insecurity that is where a lot of our traumas and survival terror and these things that stop us from moving forward to our highest dharma, where those reside. So this is all root chakra stuff. And therefore, the beauty is that we're going to do this 9-day journey. And 9, of course, is a very important number for transitions, new birth, death and rebirth. And we've run this immersion many, many times, but never done just the root chakra. And people go into this amazing vortex while it's happening. It's like a story unfolds. And it's like you're in your own movie where the universe brings you in things to help you move through stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit about some things that come up for you when you've done the serpents before?
Yeah, it's I've been thinking about it and trying to pinpoint these things because so much happens all the time. But I think for me, what I just thought was a very unexpected slash hilarious, very 3D thing that's happened for me is when every time that I do this immersion, then it's so strange. It's my YouTube recommendations. They go in line with the themes. So when we did like the sacral chakra, my whole YouTube recommendations would give these absolutely wonky love stories between people and their first cousins and brother. It's like very strange. Just the themes of love and relationships was up for me at the sacral at one point very strongly. And I just got this basically the whole spectrum of what love could be interpreted as. So it's just like stuff like that keeps happening for me, which is my funny little serpent's hack, I think. It's like it's the field comes into my computer. So yeah, there's just a short, very odd thing that happens every time.
Yeah, and thank you for that. This is how it brings, because it's working with numerology and astrology and the breath. The breath is the center point of everything. And when we study Tantra to a deeper degree, we suddenly realize just how much of a microcosm it is to the absolute. So when we start to use these codes and keys of the ancients, and these are like avatar beings, this system is connected right through to Babaji. And then we do it as well at the right time in galactic time. It just does something. So we really absurd things happen to people, like somebody's maybe thinking, oh, I want to work with relationship issues, and they manifest like a lover for the whole duration of the serpents, but they can see all their codependencies coming up. And that, because I'm going to be holding space for it soon, my stuff about not having a home and feeling these ancestors who, must have run for their lives, it's in my body right now. It's really activated in my body. And interestingly, I'm going back to Northern Ireland like 2 days, so where I'm from. So it's like I have to go through it a little bit before you all, but I can feel how powerful it's going to be this time. And this was something that ethically we really wanted to do, because the serpent wave spell happens every 9 months or so, and because it's coming into the autumnal gateway and it's coming basically into Samhain, it's a really good time to really have a little bit of a death process with things. And this is all about shedding the history, the past, the trauma, and having a journey about that. Plus, we've just come out of, well, we've come out of the main eclipse season, but there's actually a partial eclipse in 2 days. So it's game on in terms of the way the astrology's lining up, even just now. But what's also connecting in is that in 2026 and 2027, the way the astrology works across the 3 systems that I work with, we have a massive collective ancestral portal coming up. And yeah, I'll be talking about that during our ancestors course. I'm going to show people those keys and codes. And we already had a baby ancestral portal about 2 years ago, and that's why a lot of people have already started doing the work. But then what happens is it actually then goes into a collective vibration, and we have an amazing possibility to really clear from the shackles of the past and to release addictions and things like abusive behaviors and all those things that may reside in our DNA template. And a lot of people have already started their journey. So most people that we interact with have done some sort of healing work or feel that they're spiritual in some way. And what we're seeing when we look at the timeline for the next couple of years is that those who are already on the path are having to do the ancestral work now. They're having to do this stuff about the amnesia around our roots. It's this pain that sometimes arises of this not knowing. And possibly that is something to unify us in the long run, that we maybe fixate on knowing about stories. But we have something very, very unique happening, because we have this possibility. We now have psychotherapies that work with the ancestors. We have pranayama, where we can work with the root chakra. We have the Sangomas from South Africa that we work with, and they're sharing their tradition and their ways. We have the astrology that shows how you can find the ancestors. And we're very wealthy in this time. Like, in a way that I've never seen before, that we can bring all these systems together. And it's like people know this is something they've come to do. And when I'm working with people at the moment, I've been working with quite a lot of mums recently. And because we open a portal to ancestral work taking place, even when we're just doing psychotherapy, their kids are coming up and mirroring to them before the session exactly what's about to happen. So we have this feeling that it ends with me. This was a real turning point, I think, for a lot of people who had COVID awakenings, was people were very quickly saying, something's changing for me, but I also know I don't want my children being the way I am, and I'm ending this. And so there's this sacred activism that's arising in people, the sense of knowing that we have the agency to clear all of these things that kept us in a very karmic, codependent state of patterns. And now we have all these things converging. So this is what our ancestors course is about. It's about bringing this cross-cultural batch of teachings together, but we're also going to make a sacred space. So we're going to be teaching people how to make an ancestral altar. We're going to show people how to do certain modalities. We're going to do demos. We're going to have a living forum where people can share what's going on for them and represent their ancestors. And I don't believe that there's a course out there that actually brings these ancient systems from the root cultures of Australia and especially South Africa, well, South Africa and West Africa, and then these psychotherapies and shamanic principles and astrology all together. And so, yeah, so it's feeling very big in my body right now. I feel a tremendous amount of beings starting to congregate, as happens when we do this big work. Yeah, and I guess something I'm going to say is that the last 3 years we've been running a death course at this time. And it seems that part of our Dharma is to really hold these portals for those who have crossed over and need to decompress some of the things that maybe were heavier for them, or people who didn't cross over properly. And it feels like this year, our death course is really about connecting with the ancestors. And it's very interesting what's happening for us over the Samhain portal, because we're involved in a very big piece of work on a borderland with where a lot of people in the First World War died. And yeah, so the work continues, but this time it's like the ancestors are really knocking on our beings and asking us to do this work. So before I hand over for some questions, I just really want to say this is why we really want to have a very deep, grounded winter with people, because we have our Sangoma brothers and sisters who are there to hold space and from the African traditions. Then we have we do in utero work, we do readings, we do tremendous amounts of psychotherapy and space holding. And if people want to have some space held for them, that's why we put on the Serpents as a 9-day immersion, so that people don't feel like, wow, I've been in this really intensive 45-day thing and I've got no money because I spend it all on the immersion. We're like, well, why don't you have something cheaper? And then if you need some follow-up support because all your shit comes up and you have a big journey with it, you actually have capacity to do that with us. So we're on hand. This is, for us, this is our kind of deployment of our maternal energy, is to hold space for people. And we really want to create this kind of fleet of, we might call us Shambhala warriors or Dakini weavers, people who really want to be in their highest Dharma path. The final bit of astrology I want to share with you all is that Mars, the planet of stamina and courage and, really moving forward, is very much subdued in its location right now in Vedic astrology. And it's like that for a very elongated period of time. It's usually like that for 3 months. It's going to be like that until June. And we're going to have some really big karmic astrology from around March till May next year. So I'm speaking to grandmothers, so the grandmothers of Avalon, and they're all feeling like this is their time to do the residues of the little niggly bits, so that they can get really, really on track to be in maximum space holding for the larger populace by mid next year. and that's totally in alignment with the astrology, is that we have this winter, kind of a bit of a grace period to do the tweaking. And this is why, you know, some of us need to be robust for when this big ancestral portal opens up, and normal people are suddenly feeling it's time to do the work, because people need to understand more about this. Yeah, so that's the little snapshot of why the time is now. There is a lot more I could tell you. Yeah, would you like to know more about anything, or do you have any questions about the timelines or anything?
Thank you, Padma. I was just interested in what's the time commitment, because it says 9 days, and I've seen there's going to be 3 live calls in those 9 days, but what else would be required?
Okay, so there's a compulsory pranayama to do every day, but we've made it very friendly for the way the world is for people, because, you know, we often struggle to fit in sadhana because we're trying to overcome all these old blockages from the past. So we've made like a cheat sheet for how to not end up embroiled in shame because you can't do the full practice. So there's like a mini practice. So there's like the baby pranayama practice, and then there's like how to get the most out of it. So as long as you're clocking in every day, like maybe some days you can do the really big one, and then other days you do the minimal, but you still, it's about flipping switch with the cosmic law of the numerology. So there's a baby version you can do. And so to do the more substantial pranayama sadhana probably takes about 20 minutes, even less. That's the maximum you could do of the pranayama. But you could get away with a little 5-minute one if you're really struggling. Okay. And then there's a yoga sadhana that some people love to do that every day who've got loads of time. We suggest you try to do that 3 times over the 9 days. But if you didn't get to do that, the sacred numerology is really working with the pranayama and this technology of the breath. So we're really trying to emphasize that to people this time. It's like, as long as you can try to do the pranayama, then you're okay. And then where people sometimes struggle is that it can seem like a lot of information at the beginning, because we've got to share the foundational breathing and the informational videos. So we really suggest people have a look at all of that the day before, at least, because what happens is the immersion is going to bring people's shit up. So then they're like stuff of, I can't do it, and all of this can come up, or they can feel very overwhelmed. So try to do a little bit in the day before, and then as long as you get your pranayama done once a day, you're doing fine. Then there's a transmission about the root chakra. And then in terms of the tutorials, they're about 90 minutes long. And you know, a lot of times people are moving through really big stuff. And then when they sit with other people, often people mirror stuff that's like spooky. And often somebody will be like, that happened to me too, or somebody else has the answer to someone else. And also we often end up doing some trauma-informed work or some recapitulation of old energies to help people to reclaim their energy from shameful moments or historical situations that are still causing overwhelm in the body. So I kind of do divination as to what we need in any of those real-time sessions. So it's great if people can make those, but we record them and send them out as well. Yeah.
And Padma, does it start on the Sunday the 20th? Is that the day?
Yes. Yeah. So the serpents is super time sensitive. It's 9 days from the 20th. And so if people can just know I'm in that for those 9 days, and the least I need to do is the pranayama, then I think people will be okay. And then rather than having people doing the whole 45-day journey, there's then this option to then go in, having done that inner work, to then go into the ancestral work. So that's why it's uncanny, because in the Mayan calendar on the 25th, we go into the portal that's really about life, death, rebirth, and the ancestors as well. And then we're going into the Samhain portal. So we just thought these two have to go back to back for anybody who really hears that call. And that's why we're offering a reduced price bundle for the two. It's not to say like you're a bad person if you only do one, but if people really want to go in there, they're going to get the body technology and that opportunity to just, how would I say, to do a lot of the clearing content free. Like pranayama especially with this technology, people move through these samskaras, these ancient old karmic residues, and sometimes it's like you're in this movie watching these things happen, but things are clearing. And in a way, you know, this is why working in this way can be beneficial, because it can overcome having to go for weeks or months to therapy, stuff like that, because it's just moving out because of the intelligent technology and because we're becoming sovereign over the breath. So we're rewiring lots of old karmic systems that subordinated us and our ancestors. And then there will be the deeper how-to that's very multidimensional as we deepen with the ancestors training. Yeah. And then just to tell you more, so the ancestors course begins on the 25th, but it launches then, and we've already got the first two classes ready for everybody. So there's going to be like 2 pre-records and then 1 tutorial every month. And just because often people sign up late, we're giving like spaciousness. So we'll be keeping registration open until around mid-November, just before we have the first tutorial. And then we'll keep that course going through into about end of January. So it's going to be a living container to journey with the ancestors whilst receiving these teachings. Okay.
So I have a question. So if, for example, we're working with an ancestral trauma that's a few generations back, and we're kind of clearing things from the field, is that clearing from just our field, or would that also be clearing from the field of like all the living descendants of that ancestor?
It depends how you look at it. So I don't want to answer too much on that right now, because the course is designed from a template that's going to really, it's going to challenge things and then hopefully bring people on a very big journey. Because if you were to talk to the Sangomas in South Africa, they have a specific karma, a specific lineage, and they'll tell you some things. Then you might go somewhere else and they might tell you something else. And the course is designed to bring you into that and then out into a deeper non-duality with all of those concepts, to be able to weave them all, but also to find your unique truth with that, okay? But how I look at things is that we have an immense range of possibilities in this time. And this is why for us, the space that you open and the intentionality you put to a piece of work is really what may help a larger span of ancestors. And so through the course, we're looking sometimes at the concept of ancestors like great-granddad, okay? But then ancestors is also legitimate in its own right as a multidimensional field that is that for some cultures are creator beings, for some are allies, for some are all the generations behind great-granddad, okay? So different people will have a different dharma because of their unique karmic situations as to what they're supposed to do with the ancestors. And we're going to be teaching you through the course how to spot the ancestors in your astrology, because some people are here to just be really pummeled in a certain way. Other people need to do maybe certain pujas for the ancestors. Other people, have their moon, their mind is very connected with the ancestors. So we're going to help people see these markers to also understand. And then there may be times that are beneficial for people to be doing that work. So a lot of this is about what your aspirations are. And I think that the way we're running the courses, we'll start with the traditional way of doing ancestral work, which is often to create an altar. We have to start by creating relationship with the ancestors. And with that will probably come some understanding of the need to nourish the ancestors. You know, it's about developing reciprocity with a consciousness field, but also these people who had like diseases or traumas, or also had superpowers. And so learning to listen and to drop into that space is absolutely imperative. And so we need to start there. So thinking, oh, I'm going to connect with all of them right now is probably a little bit ambitious, but by the end of the course, the whole multidimensional mechanics of that should be clearer to people to responsibly do that, and to do that without maybe bringing in something that isn't the right thing. So we'll be helping people to really start to spot how that may work. And yeah, we have to start with the humble beginnings of understanding, because as I say, there are correlations between all the cultures, but yeah, people have very specific practices, especially in some of these root countries where, let's talk about the African continent. Ancestors are like the fundamental to the belief system in many ways. We wouldn't say that. If you went to Tibet, they honor the ancestors, but they wouldn't say that. If you go to Ireland, they wouldn't say that, okay? And so I've been really pondering on what this is trying to teach us and how we can come to a non-dual perspective of what is the right ancestral work for each of us to do, given our background and why we incarnated the way we did. And I did an interview with Neil Davis, who's a dear brother and Sangoma. We did it yesterday, I believe. And it was just, there were some things he shared with me that you're going to all hear if you do the course, that were further confirming to me some of the codes that were coming through about karma, about multidimensionality, about our own journey with the ancestors. And so therefore I can't really answer the question now, but what we want to do is to create this kind of shamanic field of witnessing where we start to understand, because if we're looking at this from a tantric perspective, everything, it can be everything, okay? So if we were doing this from a Kalachakra Tantra perspective, and we were talking about absolute Buddha nature, we're not separate from the ancestors. So therefore we can do all the work for all the ancestors by connecting with anything, because actually it is all us, okay? But we come in Muggles world with this grand degree of separation and feeling disconnected, and also understanding this inheriting that we do of these afflictions. And in order to step into a golden age, which really we do have the possibilities to do, we want to be moving from being karma informed, so addicted or shameful or angry or having a legacy of domestic violence or any of these things. I think we get the sense that some of this is something that's been carried, and on a trauma perspective, this is often unprocessed wounds. And we can see through psychotherapy, through Sangoma work, through shamanism, that these shards of data can manifest in our being. And so learning how to navigate that, learning how to process that, witness that, and knowing how to do that without upsetting the ancestors is actually exceedingly important. There's a language. And as you hear more about how we do these with these different practices, you're hopefully going to understand the diplomacy that we need to operate with our ancestors. And then we hope to end the course with you all having processed and witnessed and acknowledged a great amount of interesting data, and also understanding more about your own cultural history and your own karma, but then to leave also with this amazing field of support that comes from the ancestors. So yeah, and when we do that, we all become more Dharma informed. We can all be in our higher path because we are not holding that heaviness. And this leads me to have a lot of optimism about the times we're coming into, because we have these signs that it's time to do this work. And so the ancestors are celebrating that this stuff can go and that we can lighten the load. And I really feel that with bearing this in mind, that this seems to want to happen now, imagine a world where we didn't have that stuff. Imagine on a grand scale what sort of humans we could be in less than 10 years if we are not identified or defined by that anymore. And if we want to look at things like ecological degradation or war or these shadow values that create a lot of suffering in the human condition. If we're not carrying stuff anymore, we start to operate with very different agenda, and we start to become these, like the ancient creator beings. We can start to bring this golden age into being. So this is why for me it's a form of sacred activism as well, for us to go, you know what, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to express, feel, witness, pay back as well. You know, our ancestors gave us birth, they gave us life, and us witnessing and creating the sacred reciprocity through to the hardship that they endured so that we could incarnate. There's a beautiful humility that we can dedicate to by doing that, but it brings an immense amount of gifts as well. So sorry I couldn't fully answer your question just yet, because I think for each person, people will start to have aha moments about why they're here and why they had to carry certain things, but why they can celebrate taking that to another level.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions? Madalena, do you feel to share anything just about the courses or about anything linked to this?
Yeah, so I do agree when with the serpents that everything becomes like a mirror, and so many it can be like even people or you're having a conversation. It's like those moments where you really feel that someone is talking to you about what's moving through within. So I do absolutely concur with that, and it's a massive journey. And also how the ancestors course came in, it was just Padma and I were just talking, and we had to agree on certain teachings, and yeah, everyone was just like coming up with the ancestors, and yeah, and also for me personally as well, I don't know, it's just like the ancestors just pop up quite very sudden, and yeah, it's just sometimes it feels like you're always doing that work, but at the same time not, but it's something that cannot really be bypassed. So we actually need to honor that to be able to move forward. So yeah, I don't know what else to say, but yeah, that's I just wanted to share a bit how that came through.
Oh, thank you. And I think I'm going to say something. It's just come through. I wanted to say, because I have to be fair. And somebody approached me yesterday who has a family member who's been in a very big journey recently. And he's feeling the call of the Ancestors course, but he said that he doesn't know if it's going to be too much for him. And he feels like he can do the first 2 classes, but then doesn't know. And I said, well, let's say that that's okay. He can pay like a proportion, and then if he wants to stay on, he can pay the rest later. So given that I haven't even run this through the others yet, but given that I've already said one person can do that, if you want to, you can come to the first 2 classes. I don't know about coming to the tutorials unless you're fully in the constellation. But if people want to sample it, they can consider to do that. And Madeleine and I can discuss how that would work, because I've already said that one person can do that. So if you're thinking like, I don't know if it's for me, or I'd like to just hear a little bit more, then we can look at that. And no matter what, if you decided, well, I just want to do serpents and I want to do a bit of ancestors, you could still have a nice little journey for about a month with that. And that's probably a very, like a, how would I say, like a bite of it. So yeah, I'm just going to offer that because somebody else is letting somebody else do it. So if that helps for you to know, like, okay, I'm just doing a taster to see, and then people can commit further to the whole journey until the end of January, if that helps people. Okay. And we're also fine with things like payment plans. We always do things like that. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything they want to ask or say?
Yeah, hi. So since I stumbled here, I've been feeling the ancestor and serpent themes very intensely these 2 days. But I don't know anything about you or the work you guys are doing. And I do wonder a couple of things. One is, what are the financial investments in all those options? And the second thing is, if we do not do it, but we still feel things, but don't get involved with the course, do you have any advice on tips how to navigate all of that on our own in this time?
Okay, so let me just think about the navigating on one's own first.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we're in a very karmic time around serpent energy for sure. And this is Saturn is sitting in a place that's really bringing up very deep serpent themes. And I'm not going to go into the astrology too much about that right now. I think you can probably find things on my YouTube about that. So one of the things that we need to navigate when we're working with serpent energies is our relationship to four things: sex, death, the material world, and the ego. And these are up being challenged a lot, especially in things like New Age spirituality and shamanism and tantra and plant medicines and things like that. So a person needs to learn to be able to ground their energies and to work safely with their energies, because what can happen is distortion can come with the serpent energies. Serpent as a totem is always connected to things like life force energy, kundalini, but it's also very much about how we work with power. And so part of the temptation, we have the serpent as one of the most powerful and universal totems in mystery schools and traditions all around the world. But if you look at things like the church, it got rid of, if you look at Ireland, St. Patrick banished the serpents. And it's also interesting because a lot of people really struggle with sexual energy in Ireland. A lot of that's been repressed. So learning to utilize our life force energy and also our values around what the serpent represents is exceedingly important. So that's why grounding it, and that's why certain things like pranayama is really useful for it. Any sort of pranayama, but this is one of the reasons why we work with this particular one, is because a lot of people are having kundalini awakenings at the moment, and people can have what's called a deflected rising. And a deflected rising means the kundalini rises and then it actually goes back down into the sacral. So people then start manipulating with sexual energy and sexual power and things like that. So those sorts of things, when somebody's trying just to do that on their own, this can mean that people can get a little bit full of spiritual hysteria. So it's not to say that everybody's going to have one of those risings. Many people will have a pure rising, which just means that the energy is circulating in a more pure way, and they just become a more generous, nice person, which is really what a Kundalini awakening is about. So it's just that with serpent energy, there come a lot of challenges around how we use power and how we use life force. And so anybody who wants to be more deeply journeying that needs to be aware that they will probably have some teachings about that. And, we all have to navigate a lot of teachings on our own. So bearing in mind, right relation to the ego, right relation to death, right relation to the material world, and right relation to sex. If a person keeps that in mind, that's a really good way to navigate it, okay? There's also a book called The Return of the Serpents of Wisdom by a man called Mark Amaru Pinkham. Somebody could write that in the box, who knows the book. And he talks about mystery schools and why serpents have been a very important totem throughout time. I don't know if Sandra, you're still there. Your camera's off. So it's just, that there are books out there which will talk just about serpent energy and this amazing metaphysical representation of what serpent means. That book's a really good way. I think you can get it on Kindle. I think you can get it on Kindle. And so that it's Return of the Serpents of Wisdom. But that the spelling is right for Mark Amaru Pinkham. So you could look at those, and that would help you to ground a little bit more into this amazing fractal that resounds through time around serpents. So I hope that helps. Okay, cool. And Madalena, maybe you could help with the energy investments of things.
Yeah, so if you just want to do serpents, the 9-day journeys, it is a sliding scale from 88 pounds to 144. And then we
And
have
that includes all the teachings and the tutorials. So there's a lot in there. Yep.
And then if you want to do them both combined is 333 to 400. It's from 333 basically pounds.
And we're fine with payment plans. And then we've basically got a team of psychotherapists and experienced trauma-informed people holding space through both. And then if people need extras, like supplementary stuff, we've basically got readings, trauma-informed work, art therapy, quantum therapy, all sorts of things. So if people really want to go in and do the work, we've got lots of things available. Okay. Cool. Well, yeah, but maybe we'll just leave it there. We've been on for about an hour, and I do hope that's useful for you. I do think we've got, I can't remember what's public and what's not public on my YouTube, but yeah, there are some things up there. And there may be, if people want to request, I think I did a teaching on the importance of serpents some years ago. So it may be, I don't know if it's up there on public, but if people request it, I think Madalena can send it out to you maybe. Because yeah, it's I'm going to just like finish a little bit on the serpents. And it's not written about Mark Amaru's work, but the book, The Cosmic Serpent, DNA and the Origins of Knowledge, I believe, by Jeremy Narby, was a very important book for my own personal and spiritual growth, which I think I found in around 1999 or so. And this was part of the opening of me doing a lot of work with plant medicines in the Amazon. And it really opened up to me this connection with epigenetics, DNA, serpent codes, and all of these things. And then it also opened up a journey for me to my own lineage. And I have DNA that connects in with the serpent people of North Africa, and also the Knights Templar, who were keepers of the sacred sexuality codes and the serpent codes, and kind of the Magdalene lineage. So I've had this journey that's very much an ancestral journey with the serpent as a totem. And yeah, there are many keys within how we understand epigenetics that, yeah, I think is another reason why when we look at the root chakra and DNA and this fractal, we start to understand more about even how shamanic traditions working, how we're working across these ancestral fields, and this mission that we have, and this also malleability, this optimism that we can actually clear so much stuff. We really have this wonderful time where we now understand that DNA can change how it works. Okay, and this is epigenetics, but we also have this concept of neuroplasticity, that we can also re-educate our neural pathways. We can start to respond to things from a less traumatized perspective. So these all have a fractal component to it. And that's why also the serpent has a fractal component. It can connect to our DNA strands. It can also connect to things like the Ophiuchus constellation of the celestial realms. So yes, the serpent has been like this much feared and revered totem across time. And something I should have said is I've got a chapter about it and a chapter about ancestral work in my book. So I wrote a book and Madalena and Micah were instrumental in helping it to be published, and that's up on Amazon. So that's like people can read that, and it will help them to ground into a lot of these concepts. So it's called Dakini Weaving: Keys to the Golden Age. So that's only $9.99 on Amazon. And one of the reasons I wrote it was because we really wanted people to be able to get their knowledge up in these years to help us to know how we can work with this sacred activism. So it was quite a lot of time to make it happen, but it means that people can read it for a very affordable rate. And if people want to find out a little bit more about us and don't know us, we are actually suggesting to people, why don't you go and read the book? Because then you can come in here rather than, lots of questions and answers. It's all there for you. So that's something we would suggest. Like often we have people who send us questions. We're like, just check out the book. And we use it now as a course book for a lot of our courses. So that's also just probably a really good way to answer some of the questions you might have. Okay. So yeah, that's out there in the field. Okay. Cool. Okay. So yeah, and we're going to be having a book tour party this Friday in Belfast. So if you're in Ireland, you can pop up to Belfast.
Wait, is that what you're doing in Belfast in Body Conscious on Friday?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, so we're going to have real copies of the book there, and we're going to be talking a little bit about sacred activism, human permaculture, disconnect from the land, and I don't know whatever people, we usually weave, we make it like a tribal council, so we weave and dance with everybody. So if you're in Belfast, do pop in. We're going to be there, and we're going to be there for a few days, staying in Body Conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you feel to come to Belfast, you know where we are.
I think it's calling. Thank you.
Yay, all good. Cool. So yeah, so I think that feels good for now, unless anybody feels there's something we need to weave. Okay. So yeah, so I just really want to thank you all for coming on this little call, and I hope it did answer some questions or help you see some connections with things. And yeah, I just really want to give gratitude to the ancestors, both in their form of seven lines before and after us, and also to the field of the ancestors, the grandmothers, the net of light, the crystalline mycelium grid of consciousness, to our higher selves, mono selves, and avatar selves for being with us in the ever-present now, to the rishis, to the celestial bodies, to the day keepers of the Mayan lands. I really want to give gratitude to the serpents and the nagas and the dragons and to these lands of Avalon for this final little satsang from this place. And gratitude to all of you. And I hope to see some of you very soon. Yay. Cool. Ciao, ciao, everybody. Gracias.